Did you know the average person walks by no less than 500 media messages a day? On average, 287 of those ads are absorbed into a deeper meaning. 9% of these media messages are based on beauty, body image, healthy living, and dieting.
Each day, we see or hear about how to eat and what to eat. Not only this, media portrays those with perfect skin, luscious hair, and a skinny, tall, toned body. This is shown as what the current expectation is for those in society, thus causing on to experience pressure leading to anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, eating disorders, poor body images, uncontrollable obsessions, and low confidence.
All right, so my name is Gladys Bender, and I'm the nurse therapist at Lutherwood, Benjamin Road, where the Children's Mental Health Treatment Center is, for adolescents 12 to 18 years old. I've been here now for over 20 years, and I chose this area to work in. I had been working in ER, and a friend of mine suggested giving this a try. So it was really new to me. Mental health was not new to me, but more children's mental health was a new area for me. And I've loved it and have really enjoyed it here, and so have stayed here now for more than 20 years.
So, what are eating disorders and what are examples of some?
Well, there's a variety of eating disorders, and anorexia is one that's very common that people know about, and that's when somebody feels that they can't eat. Or there's also bulimia, where people will eat but then vomit or purge in some way after they've eaten because they feel that they've eaten too much and they're uncomfortable with it. Binge eating will be associated again with some kind of purging. So it doesn't necessarily, but it can start that way where somebody is, just, and it's probably a feeling, getting some fulfillment, right? So you're not getting your needs met in other ways. So then food can be that way to do it. And then that person can, overeat and eat a lot. And they can go on for quite some time like that and be very uncomfortable. It can be really just as unsafe as somebody who's restrictive eating.
And so, what are some reasons why adolescents develop an eating disorder?
Well, there's a lot of social reasons that we think contribute to it. So, for girls in particular, and for guys, they're kind of the ideal body, and that is something that you see in advertising, media, all kinds of social media. And so people start to feel that, their bodies aren't perfect and that they want them to be more perfect and look like kind of images that they see in the media, even though those are enhanced and aren't necessarily how their bodies look. And so body image becomes very, very crucial during puberty, because for females, their bodies are changing, for males, their bodies are changing, and they soon may feel like it's not developing in a way that they would like it to develop. And so then they become dissatisfied. They may feel that they're putting on too much body fat, which is a normal developmental task that happens for development in adolescence. You need a certain amount of body fat before a girl can have her period. And so if she's not developing that body fat, then that can, prevent her from developing normally, healthy, strong bones, that type of thing. So social media is one thing, but there's also other contributing factors that might have to do with, your family of origin that you're living with, the people who influence you, whether it's your friends, whether it's the adults in your life, and how they view themselves and their bodies as well. So if they communicate negative body image kinds of comments, those are picked up very quickly then by adolescents as well when they're going through puberty and through that developmental stage. They can feel, shame, they can feel bad about their bodies, and that's one way that they might feel, purging might make them feel like they have more power and control over their own bodies. So eating disorders have a lot to do with power and control too.
So, from what you have heard, witnessed, what is the biggest challenge when living with an eating disorder from the adolescent's point of view?
From their point of view, the most difficult thing is, wanting to have a body the way they feel is ideal. And sometimes, it doesn't matter how much a person has lost, they look in the mirror and they see something, and it's something they don't like. And that's the most difficult part for them. That's very painful and very hurtful.
So what kind of options do you have to treat eating disorders here, like to help people recover through
We
eating
work in
disorders?
collaboration with another mental health center in Kitchener who specializes in eating disorders. And so we will, if we have a youth that we suspect or has definitely got an eating disorder, we will work in collaboration with them and with the physician to make sure that, you know, medically they're stable enough, that they're not purging too much. One of the things that our philosophy is, you know, energy in, energy out. So if you can't eat, if you're not able to keep food in or down, then you don't have the energy to participate in programs like going to the gym, swimming. We have a pool here. We have a lot of physical activity. And even going to school, if somebody is not eating day after day, they're not getting any calories, they can't think clearly. And so we would generally say, you can't go to school, you need to rest until you're able to eat, that type of thing. So we also have what we call dialectical behavior therapy, and that's a type of therapy that works well with someone with an eating disorder. So it's managing that distress that you feel, because there's usually, you know, uncomfortable feelings that go along with it, and trying to get someone to eat again even when they don't feel like it. So the dialectical or the DBT helps you to manage those feelings, deal with anxiety, and be able to move on and be able to eat. There's also exercise programs here, so if somebody wants to be physically active, we certainly encourage everybody to get exercise every day. So that's a part of it too. So building up an appetite that way. And I teach the healthy sexuality classes, so in that class we do talk about body image and how to, you know, develop some self-esteem around your sexuality. And so there's a variety of ways, but those are some of the main ways that we work with it.
What would happen if the individual had more of an obsession with food? So they were eating, so like guys, for example, so those guys, you know, make sure, you know, track everything they eat and make sure they're eating enough so they can gain blank amount of muscle. I know that's recognized as an eating disorder as well. So what would the process for that be? Like an obsession?
Yeah, well then we would want to see if, you know, if this is a youth that might benefit from meeting with a psychiatrist, because there could be, it could be a type of obsessive compulsive behavior, like a disorder. And you would want to make sure that you rule that out first, because if that was the case, there is medication that helps that kind of obsessiveness, or if it gets to that point. And that rather than, you know, just relying on them to have the strength to do it, they may need some medication to help them.
I know you're a nurse, so I don't know if you do like a diagnosis, but what would be like the borderline to, yes, this is a clinically diagnosed eating disorder?
If we find that a youth is, I'd say, really preoccupied with their weight and losing weight, and they're starting to, you know, they have very little body mass, you know, we would start weighing them on a regular basis if they would let us, on a weekly basis, and blood pressure and pulse to see if, you know, lying or sitting and standing, if there's a drop. That can mean, you know, that they're not getting enough of it, that they're dehydrated, they're not drinking enough fluids. Any of those medical kinds of things, we would have our doctors see them, and we would also then, you know, be very careful about and be very, set up an eating plan for them. And the eating plan then would be, you know, an expectation that they're eating 3 times a day, and doesn't have to be large quantity, but eating something 3 times a day. And then if they can't do that, then they would have to, you know, forfeit some of their programs and things that they would want to participate in. So we don't necessarily have a baseline, other than that we are just, because we usually don't see girls, or I shouldn't say girls, but guys too, at a point where they're medically unstable that they'd have to go to the hospital. If we felt like, you know, we were monitoring someone and their weight was dropping and their BMI is low, and their blood work is showing that, you know, they're getting in a pretty risky stage, then we'd have to see about having them admitted to the hospital. But we haven't usually had them at that stage here yet. Oftentimes, girls or youth with eating disorders have come where they have been hospitalized and they're on that next phase of their recovery, or they might be starting it, but it's early enough that with the interventions that we're doing here and with the DBT, they're able to manage and we have a turnaround.
All right, so then you mentioned how, like, the way of going about treating is kind of sounds like a little bit of a reward system. Like, if you follow your expectations of your meal plan, you can continue to participate in activities. So then, okay, so what are some examples of triggers for a person with an eating disorder? So I think by this we mean if someone is recovered, what kind of trigger would set them off to say, oh, should I do this again?
Well, it can be comments from family members or friends. It can be, again, how much are they aware of social media and what those images are. Like, is that a trigger for them? It's, depends up to the individual. Is that something that maybe they need to stay away from a bit, rather than getting too involved with watching too many movies or, reading too many magazines, things like that. And do some things that help to reward them and help them to feel good about who they are and how they look, that sort of thing. So those kinds of triggers, it's very individual. For some, some youth we have, if they've been really neglected as children, for example, they might hoard things, try to hoard food in their rooms. And it's because when they were children, their needs weren't met. And so that's kind of a natural coping mechanism. And so, those are things when they might notice that they're doing this more again, that they're starting to feel a little bit unstable or uncomfortable again. And so help them to identify those feelings that they're experiencing. Is it because they're feeling, that they don't have enough appreciation, enough affirmation in their life? Where can they get that in other ways rather than just with the food? That type of thing.
Okay, so for people with or adolescents with eating disorders, do they often have any other kind of mental health concerns?
For us here, usually people are admitted because of other mental health issues, and then we may find an eating disorder might be a part of it. So yes, in answer to that question, for us all the time.
Okay.
All right. So it's rarely that we would see, in fact, they may not be admitted here for just an eating disorder. Okay, it's usually accompanied with depression, anxiety. It could be OCD kinds of behavior, things like that would be, or there could be a lot of trauma. They could have had a lot of trauma as a child or their life up until now, and so we're dealing with that, and also just attachment issues where their families might have broke up, and so they don't feel. That's a very difficult thing to live through if you've had a lot of difficulty with attachments, if you were abandoned by your family, or if your family mistreated you and you had to be removed from your home. Those attachment issues are often accompanied the eating disorders. So yeah, it's usually eating disorders can be managed as outpatients. So the clinic that we deal with that is specialized is just in eating disorders, most of their clients would be out clients. So they wouldn't have to come in, whereas we're a residential treatment center where we would have youth stay here, so they usually have something in conjunction with the eating disorder.
So girls, you find eating disorders more in girls than males, and what kind of reasons do you think that is?
That's a really good question, and I think because there has been a lot of pressure on girls to look a certain way, but there is a lot of pressure on guys now too. But there's something in the nature of girls in terms of wanting to please people and to be fitting in and with their peers or the ideals that are out there in terms of how they should look. So there seem to be, the guys say there are definitely messages there for them, but somehow it doesn't seem to have the same impact as it does for females. So there's definitely guys that it influences and they want to look a certain way, but it has more to do with bodybuilding, right,
Mhm.
than it does with having too much weight and trying to constantly be thinner and eat less and purge that way. So, yeah, I would say that it has a lot to do with the environment and the messages that girls are getting.
And so what would you say, personally as a nurse, what is the difference between watching what you eat and having an eating disorder?
Well, if you're a healthy eater, right, then you're watching what you're eating, and so you're concerned about, having the right balance for the activity that you're doing, and that's perfectly normal and that's perfectly healthy. When it becomes an eating disorder is when you look in the mirror and you are never satisfied with your body, even when you have been eating healthy, and you always appear much bigger than probably what you are, and you're never satisfied. So that's when you run into trouble. Then you're never satisfied with what you eat, and you have to eat less and less and less. Okay, and you can, when I talk about metabolism with girls who are getting into those issues, it's very hard, and they don't necessarily, they hear me, but they don't necessarily believe that your body thinks it's someplace where food isn't available, so your metabolism slows right down. That's a hard concept for girls to believe, and so they still want to eat very, very little, when they're starting to get into that danger zone of an eating disorder. So I think, what was the question again? It was,
So like the difference, so
yeah.
what would you say, yes you have an eating disorder, or yes you watch what you eat?
It's probably and it is one of those things that's on a continuum, okay? So you have someone who is a healthy eater, who is careful and wants to balance their activity with their amount of food that they eat. And then you have someone way over here who has a really negative self-image and believes their body is way too fat or whatever, and is restrictive eating and purging. But there's all kinds of things in between. So, different stages in their lives. They might go through a stage where they'd want to really be careful, but that's still healthy eating. So when it becomes like an eating disorder, it's how your body image, I think, contributes to that too, and how you see yourself. And then when it becomes medically dangerous, you've gone down quite a path, because there's a lot you can do before that, before you become medically unstable. So, if you can get any treatment or any help before that, you're much better off, and it's more treatable.
Okay, so I just woke up about half an hour ago. It's around 9:30 now. Today is the day that Maddie and I are going to be doing our social experiment. For my part of it, I'm going to be overeating only one meal today, and that will be around noon, because I'm going to a buffet restaurant for my grandma's birthday lunch, and that's all I'm going to be eating today. And then later on tonight, I'm going to try to burn off all the calories that we ate today. Throughout the day, I'm going to be doing 3 weigh-ins to check my weight throughout the day.
So I just woke up and weighed myself. I'm gonna write it down on my calendar, on my chart, so I remember how much I weighed this morning.
And I'm also going to be writing down what I eat and how many calories are in the food, or I'm going to try, because I'm not good at that.
Okay, so this morning for breakfast I was gonna eat a banana, but because they're brown and yellow, means they have more sugar, so it's better to eat them when they're all green, because they have less sugar then. But instead, I'm going to have about half a cup of blueberries, so that comes to 60 calories, and I'm going to have a couple nuts. This is only 1/8 cup of nuts, but it has 100 calories, so that's how much I'm going to eat this morning. And then I'm going to go to wrestling practice and burn it all off.
Felt through the day from when I woke up around 9 until I ate, so 1:30, 1 o'clock I think. I was decently okay. Normally I get really hungry in the morning, but today I just kind of wasn't, because I think I woke up later than on regular school day. But when I got closer to the place where we're gonna eat food, I kind of got hungry.
I just finished wrestling practice. I was super dizzy at practice, and I'm even more dizzy right now, kind of nauseous.
I don't think I ate enough before. I'm going to go shower and weigh myself one more time. And then I might eat a bit depending on how much I weigh.
My family did go have dinner and I just kind of like sat there not eating. And then we also went to the movies, and that was pretty tricky because whenever I go to the movies I always get like something to drink, or I just sneak like candy in, or I get popcorn. And my whole family got popcorn and a drink, and I was just sitting there watching the movie, dying without something to eat during that movie.
I'm at work. I'm still starving, so I ate 6 Tic Tacs.
Okay, so it is the end of the day, and it was tricky to get through the rest of the day because I knew I would not have been able to eat until tomorrow morning.
So, we're getting ready for bed. Feel pretty hungry. I only had like 3 small meals today.
And that's tricky because I finished eating around 2:30, and I normally eat breakfast around 7:30 on Sunday mornings, so that's a long time without food.
But then I just weighed myself and I'm a little heavier than what I was this morning, so I don't know how much I'll float overnight, and if I don't float much I might have to do an extra workout tomorrow or something, so I'll let you guys know.
I didn't record when I weighed myself after lunch, but it was slightly higher than in the morning, not by much. It was kind of like by like a point type thing. I was really hungry near the end of the day because yeah, it's just no food in a while.
Okay, so this is what I ate this morning. We're on day 2, by the way. This is what I ate this morning. It's a Larbar. It's a vegan protein bar. It weighs 0.2 ounces. 0.2 ounces, remember that. So the Larbar weighs 0.2 ounces. It's all organic. It has 220 calories, which is a lot. However, it's super light, so it won't weigh you down. After I ate breakfast on day 2, I went to the gym. Before I went to work, I went to the gym. I did a 30-minute intensive workout. After that, I still had nothing to eat after I worked out. I went to work, which is a highly active job. I swam for about 8 hours straight, and then I came home and I weighed exactly what I weighed this morning. The point of the story is I haven't eaten since then. I barely drank water, therefore nothing else could really be weighing me down. So the fact that I weigh exactly what I weighed this morning after all that hard work really proves what I'm doing to my body. And when I was running this morning, I was running in a sweatsuit and a sauna suit, so I was dehydrating myself.
Also, throughout the day, I felt kind of tired, and then after I ate a lot because there really wasn't that much that I enjoyed at the restaurant, so I just kind of ate 2 plates of fries, and then 2 plates of noodles and chicken and beef, and then I had a plate of desserts. So after that I kind of felt gross because yeah, I just overate and I was stuffed and I just did not feel pleasant at all. I was counting down the minutes until I ate food, and it was really hard and tempting.
Even finished what I prepared to have this morning, and already I felt pretty full, and I believe that's probably because my stomach shrank a little bit from the little bits of starvation. It sucks having to weigh yourself every morning and sometimes even at night. It sucks having to think about what you eat every time you eat something, having to write it down, thinking about the numerical number of whatever you're eating. It sucks being obsessed.
It really sucked having to weigh myself because I never really do weigh myself. I couldn't imagine feeling the urge to weigh myself every day, constantly. So yeah, it was really hard, and I didn't like it at all. I didn't like being to that routine of weighing myself after I ate and everything.
Is there any other comments you would like to give us, or anything else that would help us with the project?
I don't know if this might be going off a little bit on a tangent, but when I was thinking of it too before you came, is that we see it something similar as self-harm. It's a kind of self-harming behavior. So, you know, any youth that are feeling bad about themselves, and it's some of that. It's trying to get back some power and control in their lives, but it's also because there's a lot of pain there, and so, you know, it's a way. So if you think of it in that way, I think that helps people to understand it a little bit too, because people can be very judgmental of youth with any kind of disorders, where they're not eating properly or where they're also self-harming, but it has to do with a lot of emotional pain. So it is a way that does get some help usually, because it makes it more visible, right? So if somebody's really hurting because of something that's happened to them or something that's lacking for them, then, you know, when you see them going down the road of having an eating disorder or self-harming, if there's any evidence of that, then that usually allows that person, it helps that person to reach out and get some help then too, because it's a little bit more visible.